Mate, this is really interesting to me because I was first a music journalist between 2005 and 2008. And my very first interview, which I had about 20 minutes notice for, was Zia McCabe. And
Nice.
yeah, and she actually had Matilda, she was Matilda had just been born. And she was like literally holding her in the arms while she was doing the interview. How's Zia doing these days?
Yeah, she's great. I mean, she's crazy as a June bug, you know. She's always talking about how her next oh, I can't spill the beans, but her next business idea has a very funny title. Um, but yeah, she's crazy. Tildy just went to like Guatemala for a while to work in, I don't know, Peace Corps or something like that. And yeah, because she's a grown up young person now. So yeah, it's pretty interesting having the same band for so long.
It is. I remember, she used to be a bit of a nudist, and I was going through her Instagram, and she's like, "Oh yes, I'm going for the naked bike ride in Portland." I'm like, it's nice to see that some things just don't change.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. She's crazy. I mean, she is an absolute nut. She is fucking nuts. Zia's fucking nuts.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, what else you got? What else you
but
got?
mate, I've been listening to the new album over the last few days. Firstly, well done. Um,
Thanks, man. Yeah, we can't believe how cool this record is.
yeah,
We have
particularly
we
like
pushed ourselves we pushed ourselves very far,
it's it's
doing we
interesting
started
because
every song with a metal riff.
yeah,
Every song started with, and they all went different places, but they all, at the root of every one of them, is a metal riff.
absolutely. You work with Slash, obviously, on I'd like to see with your help you with your problem. The video is nuts, by the way. Well done. Um,
Yeah, yeah. We started on AI back and did a AI. Our filmmaker, who incidentally went to Australia with us on that legendary big day out where it was like the Strokes, Kings of Leon, Metallica, Black Eyed Peas, us, uh, Peaches. I mean, it was the coolest big day out imaginable.
hmm.
So that guy who was a kid back then, I keep calling him a kid, but he's not a kid anymore. Um, so he got a hold of me and said, "Hey, a buddy of mine is really into this AI thing, and he's also a filmmaker, but he's more of just a noodler." And so we did a video a few months ago, and then then he showed me what AI has become over like 4 months, and that's why that video, I was like, shit, we got to do it now, quick, and it doesn't seem like it'll get any farther, which is nice because I don't want to do another AI video. I want to do now. I just want to go back to like old film stock and
Hmm.
have a video made that way. Uh, but yeah, boy, when we saw what that looked like now, it looks like a James Bond movie, like a postmodern James Bond movie. Epic cinematography. So yeah, I had to do it. Like, got to be the first to do that, take it that far, and out. But it did make it very clear that in 5 years, teenagers will be making James Bond movies on their laptop in AI programs. No problem.
It is insane to me, isn't it? Like what this has. And the thing is, too, we're not going to have any idea. We're not going to be able to see or trust anything we see and hear anymore. Like it's truly
Well,
like
can we
can we
anyway right
already?
now?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's so, like, one person telling one lie just because they're angry at something or jealous of something. So they can concoct, and then the next thing you know, there are riots and people getting killed, and a huge group of people hating another person, or so, it's just fucking people are stupid and mean. They're gullible. They're just we're a terror.
Yeah,
Yeah,
man.
I think with that COVID thing and all that shit, and the Trump riots, and the Floyd BLM riots, and the destruction of Portland, Oregon, and God, man, talk about a person not really believing in politics anymore, that anything can ever get accomplished, and we can't, things look pretty grim if you live in Portland right now,
Are you still
for
there?
the any possibility.
Yeah.
Yeah, we live in Portland. Brent moved to Australia, our drummer,
Oh, cool.
but yeah, no, we're Portland, such
Well,
as it is now. We're still Portland.
how did it, how did the riots and everything kind of change Portland from, because it's always been a pretty socially progressive place, I imagine. This
No,
is,
they destroyed it. Like, it's
yeah.
boarded up. Like, it looks like Detroit 1970. I mean, it's, you don't go downtown. You can't have a restaurant downtown because it'll, it's a massive homeless encampment. A lot of those people that came never left, and they just been living in tents and shitting on the sidewalks and shooting, dope and smack and meth and Fenty and whatever else. So it's, it was sad. It was really, you know, sad. That's what you get, make a TV show about fantasizing a certain city in the world for being real, liberal, and and then you get crazies moving here, and uh, yeah, what a weird experience. Why would you destroy why would a bunch of liberals, self-proclaimed liberals, come in and destroy the most liberal city, not only in America, but maybe at that time, 10 years ago,
Mm.
it was probably the most liberal city on earth, arguably, possibly,
Mm.
if not, it's up there in the most. And 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 not in an ugly, you know, like, Christiania kind of way where, yeah, drugs are legal in there, but you get knifed going
Mm.
in there. It's like skinheads and pit bulls and leather. It's just fucking drugs. And Portland was not like that. It was just really open minded and informed. Seemed pretty informed. I really couldn't believe what a great city I grew up in, and now it's just a really psychotic city. People will just get a riot, a mob going for some shit that's happening on the other side of the world that they don't know anything about, and they just want attention, I guess, or to see. I guess it's called virtue signaling,
Mm.
right? That's what most people do now. They get all nasty about something and get horribly mean to somebody else because they think it makes them seem real virtuous.
Yeah. Do you think
That's
it's
what I get. That's what I'm told. But then, should I believe that? I don't know.
well, what annoys me is that whenever there's massive demonstrations, it's people seem to be burning down their own neighborhoods. And so the people who suffer are the people who live and people who work there. Like, these aren't the people making these laws for this system that you consider so unjust. Go to rich people's
Yeah.
neighborhoods and start breaking shit. You know what I mean?
Well, rich people don't make rules.
Well, they might not
There
make
are a lot in Portland, Oregon. There are a lot more people living in apartments that vote. You
mm,
know, I mean, they tear down houses constantly and just put up giant apartment buildings, and yeah, it's completely different. In the old days, I really felt like, yeah, the rich people control this and they control politics, and but certainly in Portland, Oregon, that is not the case at all. Mobs control Portland, Oregon. Angry anger, anger. The entire city council are crooks, afraid of the mob, of the mob rule, and they're crooks. They're carpetbaggers. You know, this is a boom town. The population was about 380,000 generally growing up here. Now it's over, in 15 years, it's become over 2 million. So it's a boom town. So you get all these like crooked politicians that just show up to take advantage of a naive city booming like crazy and the tax base going through the roof. And then they're all gullible because they all have these political beliefs that they think they're supposed to have when they move to Portland, and they're a real special person, and this is a city for special people like me, and I have to, you know, so they're gullible, and it's fucking crazy, man. You know, but you guys had a real, well, I don't want to talk, I don't want to talk about the outside world. Let's talk about rock and music and
Let's
bullshit.
do it. Let's do it. Let's do it. Mate, I related to the track Real People way more than I expected to, particularly, and I'm paraphrasing, but the line, they haven't come up with a drug yet that can help me with my bullshit. What inspired it?
Well, it's just my, you know, that's one part of how I feel.
Yeah.
You know, just like, why can't I outgrow this? Why can't I outgrow this? Just fuck shit in my head, you know. Also, you know, liking to hang out, get drunk with a bunch of friends and shit. That can't help because you will say anything, you know, and then you have to live with the repercussions of it. But, you know, yeah, sometimes, man, you go through a series of events and incidences where you are the dipshit. You are the fuck up. You're the one who fucked up, and you know it, and you kind of knew it as it was going, and you knew it when you were doing it, and you didn't stop anyway. You know, so that's that. Yeah, right. And yeah, yeah.
Too real. Too real.
Great track though. God, I love that one, man.
What was Slash
Pantera? Like? It's like Pantera for a goth club or something, you know.
Well, you know, it's funny. You should mention that because I have this shirt sitting on my sitting on my desk. It's the Great
Sweet.
Southern Friendkill album. Oh, I'm sorry. There we go. Remember that? The Snake. The harshest album of 1996.
I went through and watched a bunch of Dimebag Daryl, you know, because I didn't know what they looked like. I didn't know anything about them. I just remember, you know, just historically they just had I noticed when people progress production style and that really tight, you know, triplet thing. Marilyn Manson really ripped off Pantera's sound, you know, that top to bottom, what the shape of the thing is. But yeah, I had no idea that Daryl was just such a superstar, you know, like a glam rocker almost. Like he was like a showboat, and yeah, I guess I just thought he would be like I don't know, just a long-haired, depressed, you know, 38-year-old version of, you know, that kid at 16. I thought he'd just be the same thing, but he wasn't at all, and he was on it. He was fucking great.
And
he was absolutely the shit.
They were a glam band for 10 years before they broke with their first album with Cowboys from Hell.
Okay.
Yeah,
wow.
man.
All right, so I didn't know that. I had no idea. Yeah. Wow, that makes perfect sense. Of course, now. All right, and they switched. Oh, that's right, and they switched singers.
They most certainly did. They enlisted Phil Anselmo and got a lot. They ditched the spandex and got a lot harder, but they were full on Van Halen worship for like 10 years. He actually got buried with when he died. He got buried with I believe it was Eddie Van Halen's guitar, or one of them.
Shit.
So, yeah, man.
That's
So
cool.
so right now under the ground there's a skeleton with Eddie Van Halen's guitar right next to it, which in a way is kind of metal as fuck.
That's I don't even know what to say. It's breathtaking, really. I love that. God damn, that's so cool.
Yeah, man. He was an original. God bless him. Um,
Yeah.
and mate, here's a silly one for you. The junkie video was a bit of a watershed moment for me as a young teenager, because not only like a lot of boys, I was like, oh wow, Z is so pretty, but I also that video also made me realize that I wasn't entirely straight, which means in a way, congratulations, Courtney, you're a gateway drug to being queer. Um,
Yeah. Well, that's David LaChapelle, you know. I mean, I lived for a week with that guy at the Chateau Marmont, and fuck, you know, we partied really hard just to come up with ideas. You know, I was super depressed, just broken up with a girlfriend, and he was really cool. He was just great, but I was in fucking queer world, you know. But I grew up in the queer scene of Portland because I was 15 years old playing in new wave bands at punk clubs. And if I wanted to go to a bar, I could, but I'd get beat up, you know. So I went to, you know, the cool gay bars. I went to the fern bars, as we used to call them. And we had like the Brig and the Dirty Duck and Hobos and all this. You know, Portland was a great, like, queer style town. And yeah, so when it was, you know, David LaChapelle, and now I'm in that crossing into Madonna's world and her friends coming over to the chateau to party with us and giving us their ideas of what we should do for the video. That was fucking great. It was super fun. Um, but yeah, it did turn out, man, just gay as a parade. That is beautiful. And David LaChapelle was amazing to work with. So, you know, I was happy as hell about that. God, that was great.
yeah. What, lastly, mate, what do you think, looking back over your entire career, what's the most important lesson you think you've learned?
Keep your mouth shut and don't get in arguments with people that you're kind of stuck with for the rest of your life. Don't bother. You
Uh,
know, it's not that important. This moment right now, your frustration or anger isn't that important. It's not matter. It's just sweep it under the carpet and then walk around on the carpet for the rest of your life, and it'll pat itself down and it won't even make a bump. Like, that is the most important thing. Just, you know, you don't have to engage everything that pisses you off. You don't have to get angry about everything and all that shit. You know, I think about my parents a lot. They're gone, but they both died, uh, not together or anything weird or tragic, but um, they were so polite, and all their friends were so polite. People were just so polite growing up, and I was frustrated by it. And now I would give anything to live in a world where people were just that nice and polite and tolerant again.
hmm Yeah.
Yeah.
Amen. But
I think that's why I like the queer scene, you know. Everyone's style was very important. And everybody, even if they weren't nice, they acted like they were. It was great. And also, you know, being a straight dude, all the chicks that had, you know, that looked like Louise Brooks or Betty Page, all the cool chicks hung out at the gay bars.
hmm
It's where I learned how to play pool, you know. Yeah, it's where I heard the Stranglers. You could hear the coolest music, you know. It was great. Portland was a cool Portland was really cool, dude. It was fucking amazing. That's why I named my wine bar the Old Portland. And it's just an homage to old Portland.
I like that.
Yeah.
Courtney, thank you very much for your time, my friend. I will be, provided I can get a nap in, I'll actually be able to make it to the gig. I will be seeing you in Brisbane. So thank you
All
very much.
right. All right, man. Cool. See you then.
This is actually really cool for me. So I was first a music journalist from 2005 to 2008. And my very first interview, I was 19 years old, and I had about 20 minutes notice. My first ever interview was you. It was a phone interview.
Ah,
Um,
how'd I treat you?
you were lovely. You were absolutely lovely. You
Good.
were coming down to, I was in Tasmania at the time, and you were coming down there to perform at the Falls Festival. And
Oh gosh.
yeah, and to date it, you were holding a very, very young Matilda in your arms.
Oh,
Yeah,
who's who's 19 now? Oh yeah, which is just crazy.
this is unacceptable.
Um,
Passage of time. This
yeah,
is not cool.
yeah, that's nuts. God. Um,
Like I actually interviewed Courtney just the other day, and I got offered. Your name came up, and I was like, "Fuck it, let's make it a double header." So,
oh
yeah,
right, yeah, I forgot. I did see that as sort of a uh just a notice that you talked to both of us.
yeah, and he was because I brought up that you were my first interview, of which I've now since done thousands, and he was just like, "Oh man, Z is incredible," and he mentioned that you had done some. You were recently in Guatemala or somewhere with the Peace Corps. Is that?
No, my daughter, instead of going straight into college, which just wasn't really a good fit for her, she instead got college credit for anthropology, music, and Spanish
Hmm.
by going and spending 10 weeks in Guatemala and Costa Rica learning Spanish, permaculture, sustainable building, scuba, releasing turtles into the wild. She did all kinds of cool stuff as a kind of a gift for graduating high school, but also as a way to show her that she can have continuing education. It doesn't have to be behind a desk.
Yeah, that is really beautiful, mate. So I must admit, thinking back on how young Matilda was, and I was thinking, man, you've always had a reputation of being a very free spirit, and I can imagine that that would transfer to being a very interesting parent. I imagine you'd be raising some pretty creative kids.
Yeah, I would say she's that's exactly right. And her dad is also musician and a very funny person, and he tours with us and other bands as the stage manager. So he guitar techs and kind of looks after all the gear. Besides, we call it Tildy's family band, but we back her up um, on cover songs, and now we've started doing some like originals at the house in the music room. So me and Travis are still technically married, but we separated about 13 years ago. So we're besties. We're besties that are legally technically still husband and wife, which we get a kick out of. Everybody else just seems to be pretty confused.
Whatever works, man. It sounds like you guys are doing it better than
Exactly.
most.
Well, yeah, I
So
just learned the term relationship anarchy, and I think that applies.
that's very fair. Yeah, I mean, people seem to have this really weird expectation of this box that everyone seems to fit in. A, that you have to have all of your shit sorted out and your life plan sorted out by the age of 30, otherwise you're fucked.
Yeah.
Have to be in a monogamous married relationship with 2.5 children in picket fence house. Like that makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah, I mean, none of that really worked for me. But it is weird. I mean, when people would see me and Travis getting along so well, like better than any married couple I know, right? I mean, together married. And they go, "Why don't you guys get back together?" I'm like, "Why would you tell us to stop doing what is working so well?
Yeah.
Like, because we're not fitting your paradigm? That's your problem, not mine."
Um, the new album is fantastic. Um,
Yay.
Yeah. What was it like working with Slash?
Well, I mean, one of the amazing things about the digital era is it's just sending files back and forth, right? So in the old days, you kind of had to be in the same place at the same time, which was cool, but made it much less likely to actually get your heroes in the same room as you. I mean, we were pretty lucky with Duran and some other cool artists that we did actually get to share studio time with. But with Slash, it's you send it over and he just spits out some amazing slashness and sends it back. So how was it? Just some high fives between ourselves, and that was
Yeah.
about it. But that he said yes is the cool part, and what he put on that song is the even cooler part.
Yeah. What was the Black Francis situation similar, or was he? Did you manage to get him in house?
I think he lives in Eugene, so it seems like we could have hung out in this at the same time, but I don't think he came up to the studio. If he did, I wasn't there and haven't heard about it, which would be really weird. So I'm gonna guess everyone just sits in their studios and sends the files back and forth, and um, that's just you get more people, but you get less face time.
This is true. You now I have to bring this up because it seemed very you from what I know of you anyway. In your Instagram, you participated in a naked bike ride in Portland. Yeah.
Every year that I can, we were on tour last year, but yeah, I even had a
Oh no, you still there?
assist with an
Just
amp on it,
just give me one second, mate.
oh,
You just froze then. Can you just restart that answer?
oh yeah, yeah. A fan made me a cargo, but it's because texts are coming in, I think. Um, a fan made me a cargo bike with a speaker, like an amp, a boat battery, an inverter, and it lights up underneath. And I DJ, so I'm not just naked, but I'm DJing and riding a bike naked,
I have
and it's a blast. I love it. I
I feel like you'd have to.
I lose you. I lost
No, you
you.
did a little
Ah,
bit. Yeah, yeah. So
okay.
DJing
I
while
would have to
naked,
what? Say it again.
DJing while naked and riding a bike. That's you're a multitasker. I'll give you that.
I mean, that's what I do on stage, right? Tambourine and bass and synth and vocals and yeah. I have a very active mind, I guess, and so it takes several activities at once for me to feel completely engaged.
Now, is there a? I'm just trying to think of the logistics. Would you have to be like pretty stringent with bike seat hygiene if you're riding naked?
I mean, there was this one time where I was like, that I saw my seat the next day, and I was like, that's kind of gross. So I was like, do I take a picture of this? Because that's nasty. No, I have a sheepskin seat cover now. I learned that yeah, yeah, it does. It might you might leave a mark.
One of the many things that we that Courtney and I pointed out talked about was that the Junkie video was a bit of a watershed moment for me as a young teenager because not only did I develop an instant crush on you, but also
Hmm.
Courtney made me realize that I wasn't entirely straight, which was for a 12-year, for a 12, 13-year old was kind of like, oh wow, what's this? What do you remember of that video?
Um, it's funny. The first memory that came to mind for whatever reason was we would it's makeup and hair, right? And we hadn't done quite of a lot of that kind of thing yet, where there's like people all over you. And so I we'd done photo shoots, but then you go home. It's nothing that had ever been multiple days. And so I remember them doing my makeup and hair, and we would shoot for 12 hours. And then we were young enough to where then you could party for 10 and sleep for 2 and then shoot for 12 and party for 10. I think we did that for 3 days. And I just showed up with the same hair and makeup the next morning, right? And they were like, did you like wash your face? I'm like, what? I don't even know if I brushed my teeth. Like, what are you talking about? But I remember thinking like, oh, you guys don't do everything. I actually have to wash it back off later. And I remember like, what a funny naive moment. I don't know how old was I? 20. So yeah, I they don't do everything for you, those hair and makeup people. You still have to bring your own hygiene with you, which I apparently left in Portland that weekend. But so that stands out. Of course, just the level of production was just is the biggest room I'd ever even been inside. I think, it was a massive, what do they call them? Sound studios, whatever. It was huge. And they built all the stages and all the actors and the synchronized dancing. And I mean, it was a circus. It looked and felt a lot like a circus. And that is totally cool with me. I thought it was awesome.
Nice. What, did you grow up in Portland?
Nearby, about 45 minutes north, so over the river into Washington, in a town called Battleground. I grew up in a log cabin. So I grew up quite rural, but was still a city close enough for once I was a teenager, I was able to, get a ride with a friend that had a driver's license, and then I had my own driver's license. It's, when you're rural, you get your driver's license the day you turn 16, right? Someone was saying, oh, I remember my parents took me out of school to go get my driver's license on my 16th birthday. My daughter's 19 and she's got a car. It's on the side of the house parked. And she doesn't really have that much interest. She doesn't need it.
Yeah.
So it's different out in the country. But I'm getting like a text every 10 seconds. So yeah, it was rural, but the city was there waiting for me as soon as I was ready to start exploring,
Yeah.
which was cool.
How did, and this is a question I asked Courtney as well, how did Portland shape you, do you think, as an artist?
Um, for me, one of the reasons I was such a good fit for the Dandies, is I was having the same visceral reaction to what had become the redundancy of grunge and the sort of burgeoning of new metal. And I didn't like it. I thought it was grumpy and lacking melody. Wouldn't have known to say that back then, but I know now that's how I felt. And then the opposite end of that was rave music, house, techno, before it was called EDM. And I wanted both. I wanted live rock shows and I wanted live rave music, but I wanted it to be trippy psychedelic dance music or like rambunctious rock and roll that still had a lot. Basically, I still wanted it to be the 60s and 70s, and it wasn't. But Portland, because it was so cheap to live here, we were able to afford ourselves the time to react to those styles of music and make what we felt like was a resurgence of sexy, loungy, drony, kind of what was going on in the UK and more what happened in the 60s, like in New York. So Velvet Underground or Stereo Lab, or Galaxy 500 or Spiritualized. That nothing like that was really existing in Portland, because of everyone was a musician, but nobody was really doing that. And Portland specifically was so cheap to live in. I mean, I paid $200 a month for my basement bedroom. I did have to pave the basement. It was dirt floor when I rented the house, but you're welcome. The house 4 blocks away. It's 4 blocks from where I live now. Uh, but we could work. I was a dishwasher 2 days a week. I rode the bus, or I rode my bike. I gave my car to my sister because she still lived rural, and shared a house with a bunch of other weirdo musicians and artists, and threw parties, and rehearsed 3 days a week and played shows as many, if not more, days a week. And that's just what we did. So I don't know if that so much speaks to Portland as it just speaks to the 90s. But, growing up here, I've always seen part of what makes us us is that this town is built on explorers and pirates, and the Shanghai tunnels and the Lewis and Clark expedition, which I have a relative that was part of. And so if you have an entire community based on adventurers and pirates, that's what all isn't that what musicians kind of are for the modern day? I feel like we're just carrying that same torch. We just don't have to Shanghai people or kill Native Americans to get our fix. We get to just make really trippy music about it. But I think that essence still carries through.